Hello everyone, I'm Elizabeth Farrelly, welcoming you to the Sydneyist, a weekly conversation about the city we love. Our motto here is much curiosity, a smidgen of cheek, and definitely no whinging. We're broadcasting here at Eastside from the Alan Slate studio at Eastside Radio on 89.7 FM or streaming on eastsidefm.org. Tonight, Paris. There was a time, some time ago, and I didn't like Paris very much. It's dreadful to admit, I know. In recent years, though, while it has seemed to me that London, and for that matter, Sydney, has got harder and less interesting to wander about, to explore, Paris has become unexpectedly softer, to my mind, more interesting and more accessible, more engaging, in fact, more fun. Tonight, we're talking about how that change has come about and what Sydney might learn from it. And my guest this evening is Sydney architect Timothy Williams. We try and call him Timothy to differentiate Timothy from the other Tim Williams, who's also an architect. But the chances are I'll just call him Tim. It happens that Timothy designed the extremely beautiful Sir John Monash Centre in the, I'm going to mispronounce this, in the Vieux-Bretonneux military cemetery in the Somme, where many Anzac diggers are buried. So we do have an Anzac connection, which we're also going to explore briefly in a moment. But furthermore, Tim has lived and worked in Paris for several years in two separate stints and studied in particular an astonishing project, we might call it phenomenon actually, called Le Grand Paris. Tim, welcome.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Thanks for being here. Look, let's just talk for a moment first about the Anzac Day connection, because it is quite remarkable, isn't it?
It is. It's a coincidence that our chat is today, Anzac Day, and on Anzac Day 2018 was the opening of the Sir John Monash Centre at the Australian War Memorial in Vieux-Bretonneux, at which speeches were made by our Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, and the French Prime Minister, Edouard Philippe, and the work that we'd done with Cox Architecture, Hector Abrahams, and myself, with a local architect to help us with things, Lampros, was a 4-year project that we'd done, and that was the culmination that day. And the Vieux-Bretonneux battle happened to happen on the night of the 24th to 25th of April.
So that wasn't the reason for the opening being on that day. The reason presumably was the Anzac Day connection.
It happens to be a coincidence. That's why it was a double reason why we couldn't miss that date. It was the centenary, so it was very important.
Yeah. Lest we forget. It is a very beautiful building. If anybody is over that way, I recommend having a look. But let's talk now about Paris. Le Grand Paris is an amazing has been an amazing influence. And the things that I've noticed about Paris are, first of all, it came to my notice recently that there was this article in the New York Times, I think, which was titled, "How Does Paris Stay Paris?" And the thesis of the piece was that it was all about pouring billions into public housing, which is what caught my attention. It turns out that I think a quarter of all residents live in public housing. But it's not only that. Cycle use has risen by 1,000% since the 1990s, so that today more trips are made by bike than by car. 100 streets, and as of next month, 4 arrondissements are closed to cars. All new commercial buildings, meanwhile, are required by law to have either green or solar roofs. There are beaches along the sand, pop-up beaches in the summer. It's amazing, and it makes such a difference to how Paris feels. So Tim, how has all this come about?
Well, things have not always been rosy in Paris.
Indeed.
Indeed. In fact, every 50 years or so, there's a revolution in Paris. And things need to change. So there comes a crisis point, a tipping point, and things need to change.
Not always bloody.
Often bloody.
Often bloody. Yes.
In 2005, there was a great series of riots in and around Paris, especially in the banlieue, or the areas outside the centre of Paris, which are dreadfully poor. They have lots of social problems.
So this is still within Metro Paris, but outside the central
the central part of Paris, which is about 87 square kilometres, holds about 2 million people and a density of about 200 dwellings per hectare. Yeah. Very dense piece of world. But that is not all of Paris.
And that's kind of the old part.
That's the old part within the walls of the city, if you like, which is now in the form of a périphérique or a road which runs around the outside of it. Yep. On the outside of that, there are rings of arrondissements. Yes. And there are about 1,200 arrondissements in Paris. Wow. It's very complex governance, so there's four layers of governance. But,
way too many.
But yes, in 2005, there was people killed, lots of burnt cars and riots and dramatic things seen on television.
Means suburbs, doesn't it? But they're not suburbs.
Banlieue literally means banished places.
Oh, okay.
That's
probably more accurate.
It's a place where, and so
banishment of exile.
Which is a really unfortunate term. But those suburbs are still known as les banlieues.
Accurately known as, yes.
Yeah. And so Sarkozy, who was president at the time, thought, I need to do something about this. And he'd also been tapped on the shoulders by industry saying, we're losing our competitive edge here in Paris. We can't get workers to workplaces. Okay. And so things like FedEx were saying, we're going to move to Frankfurt because we can't.
So they were sort of early adopters of what's happening to Sydney now, in a way. I mean, 20 years earlier than us. Anyway, go on.
Anyway, so he decided to launch, through the Ministry of Culture, a great consultation on what to do with Paris. Kyoto, the protocol, had just come into place, and there was a sudden realization that we need to save the planet, and cities are the most important place to act on. And so he set up this consultation where he invited 10 multidisciplinary teams from all over the world, Europe and mostly, but led by architects and urban designers, to rethink what is the condition of a metropolis in the 21st century, and how can Paris be that? How can Paris embody that capital?
So that was environmentally and culturally driven, both?
It was, yeah.
And what came out of it?
Well, the 10 teams, it wasn't a competition, it was a consultation, so they came together at regular intervals and shared their knowledge around a round table. There is
architects sharing ideas.
Sharing ideas. Imagine some egos all around the table.
No, that's difficult. I can't.
Well, it worked. And there were some players, such as a certain member of the Roger Stirk Harbour team, who facilitated and played a kind of mediation role between some of the big names around the team. And helped to make things
because there are a lot
happen.
of big egos, weren't there?
Jean Nouvel, Antoine Grumbach, Christian de Porzampar, Yves Léon, Roland Castro, and also some younger players such as Jamel Clouche from AUC, some Italians, Bernardo Secchi and Paola Vigano.
Not an awful lot of women from what I've been looking at.
Paola Vigano.
A few.
In the LIN team with Finn Gippel, that's a partnership with Julia Andy. So there were many women involved, but
not in the big egos.
But not with the big ego teams generally, or at least not visibly. Yeah. But
I must say nothing.
But with the benefit of the Byra Hadley Scholarship, which I was given in 2010, I was able to go over there and interview each one of those 10 teams.
And you've written a report. You wrote a report out of that, didn't you? And I've got a little quote from your report which said, 74 initiatives were developed with real, achievable, short-term projects. They came from every corner of the region. These initiatives range from events to infrastructure. So that's quite amazing, isn't it? So these architects, egos notwithstanding, didn't all just produce monuments.
No, not at all. Monuments were imagined as you can well imagine. But lots of very sensitive, low-impact things as well, things which actually are bearing fruit today.
What sorts of things?
Sorts of things like thinking about how water reticulates through the metropolis. How does water infiltrate? How do you work with flooding? How do you work with a porous urban form?
And what's come out of that? Is that where the green roofs came from?
Well, green roofs, that's also part of a reduction in energy use and more insulation and things like that. But yes, it was. There are many of those smaller initiatives carried through micro mobility, exactly, cycleways. The centre of Paris now is absolutely crisscrossed with cycleways.
It's amazing. It's actually, to look at, it's just astonishing because it's just so cruisy and beautiful and sort of easy seeming.
Well, one of the main things with the Grand Paris was it's about the suburbs. It's about the banished places more than about the centre. The centre's okay. It's how do you break down the barriers between the centre and the outer areas? How do you make a consolidated sense of identity? How do you reduce the inequalities between the centre and the outer areas? And so, like bike paths, they're appearing all over the suburbs as well. There are thousands of kilometres of them being rolled out.
So people can actually cycle in for work if they want to from the banlieue.
And part of that is due to the bigger, more dramatic infrastructure that's being put in place, like the Grand Paris Express, which is the new metro system which came out of the Grand Paris consultation, which means that a multipolar city is connected with fast transport. And so at each one of those poles, you can introduce micro mobility, locally structured transport systems, which make those areas more livable.
So do you mean like you have a metro station and hire bikes or something around it? So yes. Yeah. And that metro...
Or a local tram or a local bus system. But you know, if those poles, those centres are connected by a transport system, that allows that to happen.
So how did they, there's lots of questions in my mind, but perhaps the most important one is how do they get community buy-in, or how do they engage with the real people?
On many levels. So the consultation was a great media circus. There was a huge exhibition at the end of it, which was almost overwhelming. Journalists didn't know what to make of it.
Yes.
But the work there had been done.
And was there a lot of public feedback on those?
It was debated everywhere, in all the bars and cafes and on TV everywhere. It was really the talk of the town. It captured the imagination of the people.
Isn't that
they
fantastic?
Thought, you know, we have a vision. We can see how we can move forward in the 21st century.
So I read in your report the phrase "making planning sexy." It was one of the architects, I think. So.
Yeah, that's right.
I thought, that's not going to happen, but maybe in Paris.
Well, and it's. There's a culture. There was a cultural change, and which allowed new ideas to come through.
People could see that what you might call architecture or planning ideas actually could change people's lives. Was that how they managed to get that happening?
Yes, how it could change people's lives, how they could see that they could belong to something.
Yeah,
and
that's big, isn't it?
Yeah, and.
So let's talk quickly about public housing, because that is sort of amazing. I mean, that 25% figure is remarkable. I think the figure said that there was something like 13% in the 90s, and even that I think is high by our standards. But 25%, that's pretty impressive. And they're still saying there are still homeless people and people are badly or improperly housed, so they need to increase even then. How did they bring that about? I mean, that's astonishing.
Well, let's just take a step back, because you asked about how you engaged with the community. How did people get on board with this? There are many groups that got involved with the Grand Paris, not just the architects. There was a group called Paris Métropole, which was a movement started by Pierre Mansart, who was the deputy mayor of Paris, who eventually came out to Australia and did a presentation here. But he started to create bilateral relationships between one council area and another council area, until bit by bit an accord was built between all sorts of council areas which would otherwise be politically not aligned, but on the subject of the metropolis, on how we can work better together. How can we break down barriers so that the tramway can go through? How can we, so that they became a player at the table, as did the APUR, the Parisian Urban Design Office, as did the Regional Urban Design Office, the IAU, and the Ministry of Culture, and the Association of Mayors, of all those 1,200. And so
that's a lot of mayors.
And so this round table was created called the Atelier International du Grand Paris, where big questions like the transport system could be resolved. And
it sounds like a recipe for going nowhere, though, doesn't it, when you talk about those sorts of numbers and connections? But somehow they made it. Somehow they made it happen. And there were funding problems. It was a difficult and there was a lot
problem.
of brizzling, of course, wasn't there?
Of course.
Yeah,
of course. But
that's
not
French for nothing.
That's excellent.
Yes.
The more grizzling, the more debate, the more argument. That's where the answers come from.
Yes. And the energy.
And the energy. Yeah, that's right. And so the first question they answered was on transport. How can we fix the transport system? The second question was housing.
Yes.
How do we address housing in the metropolis? And so linked to the transport was urban development contracts, or the French word is complicated, but these areas around the new stations, a lot in post-industrial landscapes, were owned by Paris Métropole, and they were able then to control the development that would happen around those stations. Wow. And so they were able then to control the fact that you needed housing, but you also need schools, you also need services.
So they must have got huge dollops of money.
Yes, yes. But also, which is very French, they work a lot with PPPs and get private investors involved, and they take a long-term view. All of this requires a long-term view. They don't
end up with WestConnex. They end up with public housing. Go figure.
But there was a law made in 2010 that the Grand Paris had to deliver 70,000 dwellings per year.
Wow. A law. I like that. Make some laws. Yeah. So I came across this policy, the mixité sociale policy, which is, I imagine, is about mixing public housing with.
Yes.
Is that right? With kind of private housing.
Yeah, so there's a kind of balance of mixing social housing with private housing, and there's like a 30% kind of figure which is used.
Well, we've been talking about 2% or something here, I think.
Yeah, if you're lucky.
Yeah, if you're lucky. Yeah, that's right. This seems like a very good moment to stop for a short music break.
It's raining at the Louvre, it's raining at the Capitol.
That's a track called Raining in Paris by Lil Ed and the Blues Imperials from 2016. I like that. It's raining in Paris. It's raining everywhere. I'm Elizabeth Farrelly here in the Alan Slate studio at Eastside Radio on 89.7 FM with the Sydneyist, and I'm talking to Sydney-based architect with many years of Paris experience, Tim Williams. And we're talking about Paris, but now we're about to talk about what we might in Sydney learn from Paris. Tim, you not only went and studied Le Grand Paris and wrote your report, but you've also made several huge efforts from memory, and I probably don't only know half of it, to apply such principles here in Sydney.
Yes, efforts.
Scarred. This is scar tissue speaking. Yeah,
no, that's fine.
Yeah,
but
it's so hard to make things happen in Sydney.
It is, and I found a great fear of ideas.
Yes,
and
I think we all find that. Yes.
Yeah, and well, you more than anyone would know that. But
it's time, though, isn't it? It's time for some good ideas in Sydney.
Absolutely is, and it has been. But it really is, and I really hope that we get an opportunity to reconsider a process that can reveal some of the fantastic opportunities that Sydney has. What I found from the Grand Paris was that many other cities started to take on a similar process.
Yes.
Even before
French
the Grand Paris.
cities.
French cities, other European cities.
Like Bordeaux, for example, didn't
Bordeaux,
it? Yes.
Exactly.
For that beautiful tramway.
Which they put back because it had been taken away.
And it's just amazing.
And it's transformed the city.
Yeah.
And also lots of private investment in housing, interestingly. But Lille did their own one, Grenoble, other cities, but also Brussels.
So you had a project called Le Grand Sydney.
So I had a project called 7 Steps for a Super Sydney.
Oh, okay. Yes.
And it went through 7 steps to how you can get there. So how the organisms or the organisations that you would have to put in place.
What are the 7 steps?
Who the actors might want to be. Look, I might not remember them all exactly in order, but
well, let's ask it slightly differently. What would you do if you were planning minister tomorrow? What would you put in place to make something similar happen for Sydney?
You would put in place a PCG, Project Control Group. This is my local council experience coming through.
Yes.
But that would set up a briefing, making a brief for what we want our city to be, a well-articulated brief.
Would you extract that from the people, so to speak? Or?
Yes. Now, what we did for Super Sydney in the 2012 Architecture Festival was we did a consultation with people from every council area in Sydney, where architects gave their time to go out to each one of the council areas and ask open questions to find out what was
every council area
in Sydney.
Whoa.
And
how many are there? Like, there's quite a few.
42. I think there's less now, 33 or something. But at the time there was 42. Yes. And we and the idea was there's just random people, not targeted people.
Randomness is important.
I like to think of them as out of focus groups.
Yeah.
And we got 50% men and women just by chance. We got 125 ethnic backgrounds. We got every age group from 5 to 95. And
what did they say?
And they said, we want to be involved.
Yeah.
We want a vision.
They do, don't they? People really want to be involved.
We want a vision.
Yes.
And they want to be involved.
Yeah.
They want to be kept in the loop.
Yes.
And they want
properly, not just fobbed off.
Yeah. And so they want something where they can see that there's an idea for the future of the city. That will also be reflected in a transport system, in better housing, access to open space, all those things that we find important, and identity, art and culture, also came through really strong, as it did in the Grand Paris.
Yeah. When you speak of the Ministry for Culture, I think, wouldn't it be nice to have one of those? I'd like to have a Ministry for Culture. That'd be great. And they appoint people like poets and philosophers.
They do.
That's astonishing. So, all right. So, look, let's just speculate for the last 2 or 3 minutes about the kind of Sydney. Say that happens. Say you have your way. Let's think 20 years ahead. What's it like? What's it like to be in Sydney? What's it like to move around? What's it like to look at?
It's a city that's built on itself. It's a city that has evolved, morphed, grown on itself, that we don't spread out further. We have plenty of space within the city already. It's just how to use it better. And we just need to do a proper audit of all the space that's available.
Absolutely.
And what can be done even within the existing planning controls without inventing new ones. There's heaps that can be done.
So we don't need to rezone everything for 50-storey towers?
Well, I think we're thinking of zoning. That's something that we need to change.
Yeah.
The zoning way of planning, I think we need to evolve that whole idea.
It's a bit mindless, isn't it? And what would the transport look like? What would it look like getting to work for people?
Well, taking the Paris model, there would be a fast train that gets me from Bankstown to Liverpool, from Liverpool to Parramatta, from Parramatta to Penrith, from Penrith to Sutherland. And then in each one of those centres, there would be a local tram, a local bus, lots of bicycle parking, lots of bicycle paths, lots of micro-mobility that allows you to move around in each one of those areas much more freely, and everything pedestrianised. And
that sounds pretty nice, don't you think?
Well, yeah. Well, that's
That can't be that hard, can it? And what does the housing look like then? In your imagination. Are we looking at Paris? I mean, Paris is beautiful, but it's Paris.
Well,
Sydney's different.
Sydney's different. What we need to be able to do is experiment.
Yes.
We need to try things.
Yeah.
There are many ideas that need to be tried.
Yeah.
There's one idea which I like in France where where you rent the land and you pay for the housing. So the house goes on the land. The land belongs to the state or to an organisation of which you pay a nominal rent, and to make the housing affordable, you're means tested.
Yes.
You can buy one of these houses. You buy it. You can sell it on the market as long as it's to someone in a similar situation as you.
That sounds great. So that's the end of speculation, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which sounds fantastic.
So I think that's one of many answers that we could explore.
I saw something about when I was reading about Paris, which said that they can rent cap. They just rent cap properties, and they can almost any property can be rent capped by the government. So, would you do something like that? This is going to be almost a yes/no answer.
Sure.
We're all. Me too. One of the things that strikes you when you read about Paris is that the word socialist still crops up, and people regard it as if it's respectable. Here, nobody would call themselves a socialist and expect to survive in politics.
Well, Sarkozy certainly wouldn't have called himself a socialist.
No,
and he's the one who started the Grand Paris.
That's right.
So you've got to look beyond your own term, political term, and beyond your own agenda.
Mindset. Yes, absolutely. That's it, I'm afraid, folks. That's a wrap. I've been talking with Tim Williams, architect, about Le Grand Paris and what Sydney might learn. Handing over now to Yon on the Vinyl Frontier. Thanks for joining us on the Sydneyist. And happy Anzac Day.
Thank you.
Hello, city dwellers. Ever wondered what makes Sydney tick? Well, hold on to your skyscrapers, because the Sydneyist is about to unravel the secrets of the concrete jungle like never before. Together, we'll explore this vibrant metropolis from its foundations to its penthouses. We're not just talking about bricks and mortar, we're talking the soul of Sydney. I'm Elizabeth Farrelly. Join me Thursdays at 6 p.m. for the Sydneyist.